And it is indeed a great honor to be with you today, join you with this very distinguished panel and this very important symposium, the Palestine Symposium, and with very respected fellow speakers. Greetings to Mike and to Jeff and to all our friends there. And allow me to thank you and the faculty, the professors, the management, the team at the Ibn Haldun University for putting together this vital and timely forum. And as you all know, and I've been following some of the previous speakers, the situation in Palestine is horrific in every sense. We are facing a genocide of our people. And I'm asked to speak primarily about the international angle, the international dimension. And we are truly faced with the reality of a world and a world order and global institutions that are structurally incapable of intervening in any meaningful and direct sense, however symbolically important they may be. Indeed, Palestine shines a light on the failures and shortcomings of the so-called post-World War II order. And it is my belief that what we are witnessing is an inflection point for the global order. It is the beginning of a process towards a multipolar world that must be managed carefully and definitely. And it is about adherence to a certain set of basic global humanitarian values, without which we will truly be staring into an abyss of our own making. These are absolutely critical times, my friend. Very critical, very serious times. And we must face them with open minds and intellectual courage, and that's why the importance and the relevance of your conversations and discussions today. Because what is happening in Palestine is a test of the moral underpinnings of the global system. It is a test of the very foundation of any such moral underpinning, namely the equal application of international law to all actors. And it is the very clearly unequal application of this law that is breaking a global order that has been under strain for decades. Everybody is watching this very unequal, selective application of law. If we are not careful, we will witness ever deeper divisions in a world in which no one has faith any longer in international instruments for avoiding conflicts, avoiding suffering, oppression, avoiding genocide. This is a very serious situation. This is a defining moment for all of us. It is a defining moment for each and every one of us. So, my friends, let me first give you a sense of how serious is the situation on the ground in Palestine. And I'm sure all of you know this, follow this, study this, and teach this. And of course, speak about this. And let me be clear, this is not just about Gaza, by the way. Though it is most urgently about Gaza, it is about all Palestine and all Palestinians, wherever we are. It is about all Turkish as well, and all Turkish people. It is about all of us, all of humanity. It is about each and every one of us in the region and globally. But let me start in Gaza. As you all know, 100,000 people have been killed, injured, and are missing, presumed buried under the rubble of their own homes. Of the nearly 30,000 confirmed killed, 12,000 are children. An estimated 70% of the victims are women and children. 1.7 million people, some 3/4 of the entire population in Gaza, have been displaced, most of them south to Rafah, city of my birth, by the way, on the borders, the very south of Gaza, on the borders with Egypt. Israel ordered their displacement, claiming they would go to safe zones, but nothing is safe in Gaza, as you all know, and Israel is now threatening a ground assault on Rafah, where 1.4 million out of Gaza's 2.3 million people are located. These 1.4 million people are facing the multiple threats of an Israeli ground operation into an area with a population density of around 16,000 people per square kilometer. 16,000 per square kilometer, and starvation and infectious diseases is spreading among the population in Rafah. The destruction wrought by the Israeli military has not only been comprehensive, it has clearly been aimed at rendering Gaza unlivable, lifeless, And by the way, many are saying, oh, Israel doesn't have a plan. Israel lacks a military plan. They haven't achieved anything so far. Israel doesn't have a political plan. They're wrong. Israel has a plan, and they have executed their plan. And the plan is this: make Gaza unlivable, make Gaza lifeless, push people all the way to the south, prepare for the final push for a mass expulsion. This is the plan. It follows a blueprint. They know how to do it. They did it 76 years ago, and they are doing it the same way. So my distinguished guests and audience, the situation in the West Bank is completely at a tipping point. Tipping point. The Israeli military has launched a number of deadly incursions, killings, and there are hundreds in the West Bank, at least since October 7th, that have been killed by Israel. Thousands have been arrested. 7,000 have been arrested in the West Bank, all held in administrative detention without charge or trial. Armed by the government and under military protection, settlers, illegal colonial settlers, have gone on the rampages across the West Bank on a regular basis. 16 villages in the West Bank have been completely depopulated as a result. More than 1,000 people have been displaced. I'm talking about the West Bank, by the way. These numbers may pale in comparison to the horrors in Gaza, of course, but they point to the same motivation, the same plan, the same policies, and the same end game that Israel has for all of us, not just in Gaza. Israel is engaged in a genocide against the Palestinian people everywhere. And we must keep saying this. It's a genocide against the Palestinian people everywhere. Of course, it's most intense in Gaza, but it is genocide everywhere. It appears to be aiming, as senior Israeli officials have been clearly saying. This is not a secret. It's in the public record. At another round of massive ethnic cleansing of Palestine's indigenous people from their land. This is what they're saying. This is another round. And let us not forget that Israel was founded on ethnic cleansing. So they know how to do it. The 1947-49 Nakba resulted in the displacement of 2/3 of the Palestinian people, including my own parents, grandparents, family. And that's why I, among millions of Palestinians, I was born in a refugee camp in Rafah. They have never been allowed to return. We have never been allowed to return. And though the right of return of refugees is enshrined in international law, as you all know, Israel has never acknowledged that right for the Palestinian refugees. On the contrary, and that's what they are planning to do again. It created legislations, laws to legalize the theft of our properties, our homes, our farms, and the confiscation of these properties and lands as early as 1951. And it was then what they have done, as it was then, so it is now. It is now. So nothing is different. And make no mistake, my friends, Israel hasn't forcibly displaced nearly 2 million people south in order to keep them safe. They did not displace 2 million all the way to Rafah to keep these 2 million people safe. You are following. They are bombarded every day. Last night was a horrible night in Rafah. Hundreds were slain and slaughtered in Rafah. They did not push them south to keep them safe. It has done so in order, as some of the very senior politicians like Avi Dichter, a member of the Israeli Security Cabinet, stated as far back as November to implement a Gaza Nakba. That's what he said. And therefore, this is not a second Nakba only, according to the Israeli terminology. This is an ongoing Nakba. An ongoing Nakba for the last 76 years, unabated, unhinged. And we have plenty of examples of the genocidal language of Israeli leaders since October 7th, from the very top down, from Netanyahu and the president of Israel, down to members of the parliament, the Knesset, from generals to soldiers, and from journalists to talk shows hosts. And we follow some of the talk show hosts. Unbelievable what we hear. We have seen precisely what Israel has done on the ground. And all of you have seen that. Word and deed, by word and by deed, they did it, and they are doing it in front of the eyes of the world. So Israel has made the case easy for the International Court of Justice. And while the ICJ has ruled as plausible South Africa's meticulous case of genocide before them, allow me to cut a small corner here. This is genocide in word and deed. It is already a genocide. Regardless of what happens now, regardless of what happens later, what took place over the last 4.5 months is genocide. Tens of thousands dead, entire towns razed, millions displaced, and the very deliberate destruction of cultural, educational, health, and industrial and business establishment is meant, is deliberate, is targeted to make sure that people not only killed, but have nowhere to go. So you cannot go back because you have no homes to go back to. You have no schools to send your kids to. You have no hospitals to treat your ill to send to. So it's a very well crafted, implemented, executed plan. A complete annihilation of an entire society, an entire people, an entire nation. This is a genocide, the crime of all crimes in international law. And this is a genocide, the very crime that gave rise, genocide is the very crime that gave rise to the post-World War II global order. This is a genocide which the world collectively vowed back in the horrific aftermath of the Second World War must happen never again. We established the whole order on the premise of never again. And here we go. Here we are, yet again. So my friends, in spite of the overwhelming evidence, in spite of the fact that the entire world is watching this horror unfold live on your phones, your screens, your computers, in spite of the ICJ ruling, in spite of the repeated warnings of every human rights group, every medical rights group, every UN institution, Israel is continuing with its mass violence with impunity. Impunity. The world is not intervening so far in actual, tangible way. This is really a grotesque failure of global institutions. This is a grotesque moral failure of major Western countries. And it is a grotesque failure of humanity, I must admit. And let me be blunt here. The US administration could stop this tomorrow. Tomorrow. All it needs to do is end munitions, supplies, weapons, arms, and its financial support to Israel. Israel lives on these weapons, on these bombs provided by the US, on the financial help, not only to Israel, but to the Israeli colonial settlement expansion. It has the US has the domestic legal ability to do so, to stop. It has the international legal responsibility to do so. It has the moral duty to do so. That it doesn't makes the US administration complicit in the genocide against our people. It makes every single country, not just the US, every single country that has not clearly called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and has not yet taken appropriate action, such as ending arms trade, complicit. But it also points to a fundamental flaw in the international system, my friends. It is up to the nature of the US Congress and administration rather than the overwhelming majority of the world's countries. We have allowed only a handful of US Congress people to overtake and overwhelm the majority of the world's countries, to put an end to a genocide. And you all have seen the US veto only a couple of days ago. That was the third, fourth, we even lost count of how many the US has used the veto power to obstruct international calls for an immediate permanent ceasefire. So the international system isn't working. It's not working. It is not an international system anymore. It isn't an international system. It is merely a structure that can be used and abused by the world's most powerful countries at their behest, at their will. And it is therefore open to abuse by special interests, because it's not just countries now. It's a very special interest, small groups within these countries like the US. If those special interests can capture the mechanisms of power in a handful of powerful countries, we're done. We don't have an international system. If that is the case, what is the point? What is the point of international law? What kind of legal system is a system that is entirely at the mercy of individual politicians and their backers? And you all have followed the UK Parliament only a couple of days ago, 2 days ago. You all have seen what happened there. Politicians placing their own careers before their own responsibilities and the responsibility of their country in international law. Where is the blind justice in all this? Where is our commitment to equal justice, blind justice? Where is the equal application of law? This is what we agreed about. This was the international universal values. And by the way, people say these are Western values. No, those are universal values. The values of freedom, equity, the values of no war, the values of accountability is not just Western. Those are global values, human values. We all came together to establish these values. But these values have been chosen, cherry-picked by a few countries, applied only on enemies, on foes, but not on friends. So this week, for the third time, and now I remember it is the third time, in a fourth month, in 4 months, the US used the veto power in the UN Security Council to shield Israel, to enable Israel to continue the genocide we have described and you all talked about. It was the only country to vote. However, the US was the only country to vote against the ceasefire resolution. Even the UK abstained. And everyone else favored an immediate ceasefire in the Security Council. 13 votes with an immediate ceasefire. And earlier in December, 153 countries voted for an immediate ceasefire at the United Nations General Assembly. 153 countries. Just 10 of them voted against. And by the way, most of the 10 are small islands. This is not a narrow tally. The vast majority of the world is with an immediate ceasefire. This is not a controversial split decision. This is a clear case of a powerful minority holding back the will of the overwhelming majority of us, all of us, of the world, of 153 countries. Is this democracy? Is this responsible statecraft? Is this multilateralism and multilateral diplomacy we all agreed to be part of? All of that has been set aside, my friends, for the naked abuse of power. This is a naked abuse of power. This is an absolute travesty of justice. It makes an absolute mockery of the global rules-based order. And it is absolutely clear to everybody. Now it's clear, it's blunt. Nobody can argue. We have gotten used to powerful countries pursuing their own interests in multilateral settings and international institutions. This is not new. That is all part of the game of diplomacy nonetheless. But this is not a game. We're not talking about diplomatic games anymore. This is not a game. This is just genocide. This is a genocide. And if world institutions cannot act to prevent genocide, there is not point to world institutions. If you cannot prevent the very thing you were established to do, which is genocide, what is the point? This is the very serious conclusion we have reached. And I'm sure many people all over the world have reached. This is the very serious conclusion that every country in the world is reaching. And what then? This is the question. What then? What will happen when we strip any semblance of respect for international institutions away? What will happen in every corner of the world? What will happen tomorrow? Is the world willing to accept global tyranny by a few countries? Is that the best we can do? So my friends, we are a handful of countries. I'm asking, why are a handful of countries protecting Israel's colonialism? What is it? What is it? By the way, all this shielding, all this protecting in many small number of countries is not to Israel. They are shielding Israel's expansion, Israel colonialism, Israel's apartheid. Israel is the idea, and now you scholars and world scholars, among Israeli scholars, have proven beyond doubt that Israel is the idea that one group of people has an exclusive right to the land of Palestine over its indigenous population, the historic land of Palestine. Go read the Likud charter. Go see what the government, the foundation of the government coalition document. It says it from point one that this government is founded so Israel and the Jewish people have an exclusive right to self-determination in the entire area from the river to the sea. So this is settler colonial project. This is a settler colonial project that has become a most abhorrent reality that we had to be and live with as Palestinians. The most abhorrent reality. It has brought ethnic cleansing since its establishment, and even before, because it's bent on ethnic cleansing. It has brought military occupation. It has brought apartheid rule. It has now engaged in genocide. You see the consequences of the colonial project? How long are we going to stand aside and continue to allow this to happen? There are ways out, and there must be ways out of this. There is a global consensus around a way out, by the way. So people are asking, oh, this is complicated. It's not complicated. There is a consensus about the way out. Even the US, by the way, is on board of this consensus, with this global consensus. And the consensus goes like, we need to have Palestinian liberation. We need to have Palestinian state, independent and sovereign. Good, fine. But that consensus demands that the international agreed upon human rights principles are upheld and imposed when necessary. Accountability. That is the end of occupation, because how do you have a Palestinian state without ending Israel's occupation, dismantling all of the colonial settlements that has made the Palestinian land dotted with all these settlements? We need to end the oppression. The right of return needs to be respected. This is not just a collective right, it's an individual right for all of us. It's non-negotiable. And accountability for all. None of this is new to any of you. All of this has been exhaustively debated, and none of it can be avoided if we are to end an injustice that is threatening to upend the global order. We must act, my friends. We must act now, and we must act with urgency, because the situation is affecting all of us, not just Palestinians. And we must impress upon any and all interlocutors that justice in Palestine is ignored at everyone's peril, meaning that if it is ignored, justice for everyone else is ignored. And who's next? Who is next? And where is going to be the next war? And who is going to create new rules for this war? Will they follow Netanyahu? Will they follow the normalization of the mass murder of children? Will they follow the normalization of the mass destruction of homes, of hospitals, of schools, of universities? Israel has destroyed 75% of Gaza's schools. It has destroyed and bombed all of Gaza's universities. Will next war somewhere else follow the same rules? So this is very serious, and it concerns all of us, and us here in this room, academics, scholars, writers, journalists, rights activists, opinion shapers, intellectuals have a duty. We all have a duty to speak out, but also to change things. This is not just about us. This is not just about Palestine. This is not just about the Palestinian people. This is not even just about the global order. It's about our humanity in the end. It goes down to our humanity. This is about a common destiny. It's about a community of nations, all of us living with equal rights, protected equally, all of us, under law, and in common cause to meet the grave challenges humanity already faces. From climate change, this is not the only challenge. We have many challenges, all of us. Climate change, the global poverty, the mass migration. There are problems that we can only successfully overcome together. These are problems that disproportionately affect the countries of the called global south. We are affected in the global south. And this is why the move from a unipolar Western dominated world to a multipolar world is so significant. It's timely, it's evolving, it's happening. And we need to think about it. We need to discuss it, and we need to act and push for it. But we must take on this challenge immediately. We haven't got much time. We haven't got much time because there is no international leadership. You must provide the alternative leadership, intellectual leadership, because, you know, we are in it together, all of us, and we must do so worry of the dangers should we fail to rise to this challenge. So, my friends, the sad truth is, even if we reach a ceasefire in Gaza tomorrow, even if we do tomorrow, the suffering will not end immediately. According to some projections, international projections, even if the guns fall silent tomorrow and we begin the massive aid project that is needed, we may still witness the death of more than 11,000 Palestinians, innocent people, due to the time it will take to deliver the necessary medicines and aid to all those in need. And the time it will take to improve or improve water, sanitation, and shelter conditions. People are dying of starvation, of hunger, of thirst, of communicative diseases. Should Israel's aggression continue, the number of slain could reach 100,000. Those who are killed directly, bombarded, and sniped. By the way, there are many accounts of children being sniped in the head. So it's not just bombarding people, it's sniping people all over the Gaza Strip now. And if nothing happens, another 50,000 people are likely to die due to malnutrition, due to the inability to tend to the wounded. You know, only 12 hospitals of Gaza's 36 hospitals are partially operating for minimal sort of basic services. And due to the infectious diseases, the truth is, my dear audience, the world has already failed our people in Gaza. The world has already failed. We will not forget this, and we will not forgive. The world has failed us. The world has failed our people all over Palestine, not just in Gaza. And make no mistake, we will recover. We will. We will recover. We know how to recover. We've lived through it before, and look at us. We were not gone. We will rise again. We will rebuild Gaza. We will. And we will rebuild it as it was, beautiful and resilient. And we will build more hospitals, and we will build more universities, and we will build more schools. Will the world recover? That's the question. And how can we help the world to recover what has been happening? We have an opportunity now that we all recover and redeem from what has taken place over the last few months. And I think we need to focus on an immediate permanent ceasefire. We need to prepare yesterday a massive humanitarian and reconstruction program. We must focus on accountability, so we make sure that those who did these crimes are held accountable, so it's never again. So it's a deterrence. We must impose sanctions on illegality, arms trade, products of settlements, settlers, companies profiting in illegal settlements, citizens, dual citizens who are now committing genocide inside Gaza. There are a wide range of sanctions that the world must impose. And we must recognize the state of Palestine, because, you know, in real terms, recognition means the end of occupation. It's not just a nominal. So this is a moment when we bring ourselves together rather than apart. Pay heed. These days are defining. They are defining. So I think rather than waiting for politicians in Washington or London, let us define it together, my friends. So thank you.